I had a phone conversation with a woman in real love, meaning that she studies it, practices it. She said, I invited my husband, Rob, to a Christmas Carol concert, and he said he would go. Then he went with me, but he didn't enjoy it at all. In fact, he seemed to get irritated the longer the concert went on, and eventually the evening was just ruined, or as we'd say in the South, ruined. And he does this kind of thing a lot. So I asked, has he ever said or done anything to indicate that he enjoys Christmas Carol concerts or anything like them? She said, well, no. I said, has he ever indicated in any way that this kind of event was just really not his thing? She said, well, yeah, but I asked him if he wanted to go. So you invited him to an event which would always involve some level of pressure, knowing you and in knowing pretty much everybody else on earth. You invited him to an event that you were pretty sure he wouldn't like. So do I have that right? She said, yeah. I said, well, then that would fall under the category of kind of dumb, wouldn't it? It'd be like a bull rider asking his wife if she'd like to go ride bulls with him. Well, there might be some wife out there who would agree just to go along, and then I promise you she'd hate it. You ask a spouse to do something, and they just feel an obligation to be a partner. We have to be careful what we ask our partners to do, because sometimes we can get them to do things they don't want to, and then it turns out just like you discovered. Donna doesn't ask me to go shopping with her because I don't really like to go. Now, once in a while, I volunteer to go. In the past, I've said, oh, like once a year, but then several years ago, we went to Walmart because I said, well, I'll go with you. And I walked in and I said, wow, they've moved everything. And she said, yeah, about 6 years ago, they did. Don't ask your partner to do stuff they don't want to do. So how can you know what you can ask him to do? If you just watch him, you know what he likes to do. If you just watch him, you know what he doesn't like to do. But if you really don't know, you can ask him some activities that he might enjoy. So you might create a list of activities that you like and ask him about them. Like as in really ask him, and ask him to say either, yes, I like it, no, I don't like it, and well, maybe occasionally, which usually means no. If you ask him that when you're not asking to go to a specific thing, in other words, you're just gathering information, he'll be way more likely to tell you the truth. Try that. Let me know how it goes. It'll work better than what you did. This is from a 30-year-old woman who is changing jobs, moving from one country to another, and temporarily living with her father. So a lot of changes. And she writes, and I'm distilling several emails together here. She said, I just said some unkind things to my father. He blamed the delivery guy for a mistake that he really made, my father. He said to me and to his girlfriend, the washer delivery guy screwed up today. And without thinking, I said, you mean you screwed up? His response was silence. Oops. Yeah, he kind of wasn't really looking for your opinion. You can tell because when people are looking for your opinion, they'll say, what do you think about that? Otherwise, mostly they're not. It's like a clue. You continue. In this case, would it have been good right after I said that to say, that was a stupid thing to say? Yeah, it really would have. It would have pretty much corrected the mistake. You continue saying, I'm assuming now that afterward, since it's been, hours, that it's not worth bringing up. No, wrong. Little things pile up. Now, he might not be thinking about what you said to him consciously right now, but it is in his mind somewhere. And when you add then another wound later that you didn't mean to inflict, and then another one later that you didn't mean to inflict, and that by itself wouldn't bother him, eventually he'll blow up at you, or sulk, or withdraw, or whatever, and you'll be mystified, and you'll ask him what's wrong, and he may really not know. So yeah, it's worth bringing up. Don't let things pile up. Now, this is between a father and daughter. This would be the same with any two people, father, daughter, mother, son, husband, wife, two lovers, co-worker. Don't let them pile up. You continue. So how would I bring it up? Would I just say, Dad, do you remember how I said blank? That was pretty stupid and thoughtless, and I was wrong, like that? Yeah, exactly like that. So she wrote back another email and said, so I did it. I said exactly what you suggested, which by itself is remarkable. You said he remembered the event immediately. No surprise. People really don't like being criticized. They don't. They remember, even if it's not in the front of their thoughts. When you brought it up, bingo, he recalled it. You say he didn't know how to respond. So I just looked him in the eye. I touched his arm, nice, and said, I'll do better next time. Then I just went on to something else so that he wouldn't feel awkward or pressured. How was that? That's what you'd call perfect. In fact, everybody who's listening, you want to apologize for something stupid you said? Follow this pattern exactly, to the letter almost. You say, I was a little awkward afterward and serious, and maybe I think I need practice being wrong. Who doesn't? After apologizing to him, he actually tried to excuse me. Of course. You told the truth about yourself, that you were intrusive and critical and wrong. Now, this wouldn't be necessarily intuitive, but that's an intimate act to share who you are, even if it's a mistake. And most people don't know what to do with intimacy, so they deflect it. We assume that when people apologize or tell the truth about themselves, that they're uncomfortable, and most people are. And we don't like people being uncomfortable, mostly because then we feel responsible to make it better. And that's what your dad was doing. He was assuming that you felt uncomfortable, which actually you did, since you said you were a little awkward. And he just wanted the whole situation to go away. Even though he enjoyed hearing your apology, it made him feel off. So he excused you. You say, when he tried to excuse me, I said, no, it was my bad. I was temporarily insane, or something like that. So how did I do? Perfect. Again, a template for everybody else. And then you say, this is the first time I can remember ever apologizing to my father. Ever. It's the first time apologizing for an unloving mistake since I began to learn about real love almost a year ago. And possibly the first time I've apologized in my life. I've only apologized for obvious things like, screwing up a schedule or something. Well, good for you. And it's not surprising. Most people are raised in families where apologies are never done by the parents, ever. So the parents walk all over their kids' heads, and they never say, well, I was wrong to criticize you. I was wrong to yell at you. I was wrong to be unloving. The parents don't ever apologize. If the parents do it, it's right because they're the parents. And then somehow the parents believe that the kids will magically figure out how to apologize. And they do it with this really clever educational tool. They never show them by example, but if a kid makes a mistake, they come up to the kid and say, well, now what are you going to say? And then the kid knows, oh, I don't know. I know I'm supposed to say either thank you or I'm sorry. So the kid just parrots the words like a bird, but they don't really learn how to do a genuine apology. Kids who are forced to apologize don't know how. They don't. It gets easier with practice, and it gets more intimate, and it becomes more natural. You just took a big step. This is an example of faith. You started off by asking me a question. You said, do I just let it go? Do I not bring it up? And when I suggested that bringing it up would help you, without understanding necessarily why, you just did it. That is faith, where we believe and do even when we're not certain of the results or even afraid of the results. You ever wanted a perfect example, everybody, of what faith looks like? This. Not walking on water, not turning bread into wine, not some great big thing. This. Well, I don't understand. I'm a little scared, but I'm going to do it anyway because somebody I trust says, just go do it. You conclude by saying, one amazing thing I learned from this was when I asked my dad if he remembered my comment, he immediately said yes. Wow. And he was just standing there waiting to see what I'd say next. He was fascinated. His whole life, he has felt walked over by everyone. And I never thought of that before I apologized to him. He would never consider calling me out on a snotty comment like that because he's used to being walked on. It kind of breaks my heart. It's so sweet to finally be able to love him in a way with a simple apology. Okay, kid, you're killing me now. You had faith. You told the truth. You felt loved enough by me to trust me. You felt loved enough by me and by others to then go love your dad, to whom you have not felt especially close all your life. You just did a really big thing. You're learning a new way of living. This is very cool stuff. People often ask, how do I change my life? Oh, with little itty-bitty interactions like this one. No kidding. It's the little stuff. This was written by a member. We'll call her, to simplify, because it gets hard to remember too many people's names, woman number one. So this woman number one, was called by woman number two. So woman one and two are having the conversation. Woman two wanted to talk about woman three. Woman one thought this was too complicated and gossipy, and she didn't really want to do that. Woman one just wanted to tell woman two to, in her words, drop dead and quit bothering her. And she wanted then to continue and give woman two, who she was on the phone with, advice about gossip and making things complicated, and how she didn't how woman number two didn't understand woman three that she was gossiping about, and on and on. People do this a lot. They call somebody to talk about somebody else. Even in real love, people do this. Yeah, I know, shocking. People in real love aren't perfect. Sometimes their motives are good. Sometimes they actually want to help the person who's not in the conversation. But really often, it's just drama. They just want to talk about somebody else and appear to be in the know about them. Less in real love than in the world, but it still happens. So woman one wondered what I would do. And she asked me on the phone. I said, well, it's up to you, but one thing you could say, I don't usually tell people what to say, but will at least suggest a possibility, which people then can modify to their own words. You could say something like, I think I'll stay out of this one. This is woman 1 to woman 2. I'm just going to have my own interactions with woman 3 without involving other people. It's not a criticism of you. It's just how I want to handle it. So woman 1 wrote back, this was a phone conversation. She said, that's a very different answer than I was going to give. I usually just shoot from the hip, but then it comes across as aggressive or critical. And your answer just seems, I don't know. She sat there on the phone, on Skype, kind of, I don't know what to call your answer compared to me shooting from the hip. You'd think the word shooting would be a clue. I said, mean classy? She went, yeah, that would do it. She said, I like that. She said, to her credit, she said, I never knew that there was a classy option in talking to somebody who's gossiping or whatever, and I don't like it. Well, how would you? I said, who would ever have showed you what it was like? And she said, who would have thought me with an option of being classy? She said, I've never been considered a particularly classy person. So it turns out that classy might sometimes just be another word for being able to say, no, I don't want to do that. Yes. Classy or distinguished or put together or non-reactive. And then she said, so it's kind of like a loving way to tell somebody to F off. I said, well, kind of, but possibly without the attitude or the intent. She said, but with class, it feels loving. And now I'm just smiling from ear to ear. I was too. She said, I've always thought if somebody asked me a question, like this lady who called to talk about the third woman, I have to give a reply. Like it's the only option available. Well, sure, it's a lifelong pattern. From childhood, you were taught, like pretty much all of us were, that if somebody even wanted something from you, you had to reply. You had to give something, like the lady who wanted to gossip. So then you either had to give it to her or, as you call it, shoot from the hip and kill her. She continued saying, I'm going to have to play around and practice with this one. This is new to me. Mind you, this isn't somebody who's 19 years old. She's well over 39. She said, I'm going to go off in life's playground. And everybody, including me, gets to play however they want. What a novel idea that we actually have a choice. But true. She concludes by saying, I'm just realizing that in this playground, there will be people that like to organize and have some games orderly, like which way you should play in the playground, which ride is best going first, and all the rest. And I get to join in only if I want to. And if not, I can just go play somewhere else without arguing, without making them wrong, or without me being wrong. Whatever works, that is what I would call classy. Yes, dear, you've got it. You're making it part of you by applying it more generally, by amplifying it. This is pretty fun stuff to read. Cue the angels singing, the bells ringing, the birds winging. I couldn't resist the poetry. This is from a member who says, I was watching something on television that made me realize something that had happened all during my childhood. The television character said that his mother did almost all the interacting with the kids and then used the father, quote, as a weapon, end quote. My mother used to write our names on the blackboard if we were bad so that our father could come and deal with us when he got home. She used him as a weapon, and I had never thought of it that way before. All I knew was that that's just what dads did. They punish. No wonder I never felt close to my father. Yeah, no wonder. and probably didn't feel close to your mother either, since she was a coward and shoved this job off on him. If a parent is viewed as a source of punishment, whether it's the instrument or the judge, your father was the instrument of punishment, your mother was the judge, how could a child possibly feel loved by either parent? And then this child feels punished all of his life. Or she sees men, like in the case of your father, because your father was a guy, or you see men as sources of pain. And then you wonder why you have trouble with men. And it's because you had trouble feeling nothing but punishment from the first man you ever knew, your dad. I talked to a couple, and the woman is a people pleaser. She just literally sells herself to make everybody feel good, smiling, doing things that they like, on and on. And other people love that. But then she's not there as who she really is. He hates it. In fact, he said, I want a partner who is there with me. Imagine having a partner who's actually present, as opposed to, like, say, a cardboard cutout. He said, when she pretends, I feel alone. But then he continued in one of the most startling examples of truth-telling I've ever heard. He said, so when she pretends I'm alone, and I don't like that, but I got to say, I also use her. I use her people-pleasing. I act like a victim so she will make me feel better. If I want comfort, I get it. So I hate her people-pleasing, but then I like it. And I also use her fear. If she gets annoyed, I know what will make her afraid and stop being annoyed. I can shut it down. That's a pretty nice piece of honesty. It was stunning for her to hear him be that honest. It was pretty stunning to me to hear it. People-pleasing has to stop. It becomes an addiction. And in a future chat, I think I'll probably make that a much longer subject. It ruins relationships, but it feels so good for a minute, just like pretty much any other drug. New subject. This is from a mother who's raising her 2-year-old son in real love. She said, Thomas and I went on our usual Tuesday morning park play date with the other moms. Before we went, he wanted to bring some bread. And I asked him why. He said, well, for the parents, if they didn't eat today. Like, are you stupid? So I brought some bread. I just didn't want to dismiss his kindness. Oh, honey, you're just beautiful. I can't count how many times I've heard little kids say thoughtful, kind, inquisitive, insightful things, and their parents say, oh, we don't need that, or they dismiss them in some way, or hurry up and get in the car. Well, how does a child ever learn what kind, insightful, caring, and all those things are unless they try them and the parent appropriately labels them, or at the very least supports them? We dismiss the silly notions of children. Oh, just leave the bread here. They will have already eaten. The mother continues. So when we got there, he asked the other moms if they were hungry. The moms were smart enough to know that this was a cute game. So they said yes, and Thomas handed each of them a piece of bread. He had a lot of fun, and when we had to go, he protested. He was having so much fun. I did my usual, okay, and I probably taught her this. She said, okay, fine, you can stay, but I'm going to leave because I want to have some lunch at home. And I turned around and headed for the car. He usually hates that because he's 2, because he doesn't want to be left alone at the park. So he always follows me, usually kind of grumpy. This time, he spoke up and he said, I am very angry now, Mama. I love it when the 2-year-olds teach us how to live. And I said, okay. Now, this is excellent because you're not persuading him. You're not commanding him not to be angry. Just, Okay, I'm listening. You're angry. So he said louder, I very like this park. I said, I know, it's a great park. See, she's listening. He got into his car seat and said again, I am very angry. I want to do something wrong. Now, this is genius. This is a 2-year-old who has already figured out that doing something wrong, this is a principle people don't get till they're 50. Doing something wrong will temporarily make him feel less helpless when he can't get what he wants. We adults do that all day long, except we haven't figured it out like the 2-year-old here. I can't get my way, so I want to do something wrong. This is right out of the Real Love book. So I said, the mother said, okay, so what do you want to do wrong? And he pointed at the headrest in front of his car seat and he said, I want to tear this off. And I said, okay, partly knowing that he couldn't do that while he was strapped in his car seat. When I got home, I asked him if he was still angry, which was really smart as opposed to just hoping it goes away. And he said, yes. And I told him, that's fine to be angry, but can you be angry in your room? Because out here in the kitchen and the living room, we don't want there to be any anger. And he stopped. And he smiled and he said, he's 2 now. Okay, I will not be angry. I want to be here. Sheesh. How much easier is it to learn that he would rather be with people who love him than be angry, than to learn it when he's 19 and they put him in prison for it? Not exaggerating, since I visit prisons regularly, and that's how they got there, because nobody ever taught them how it is appropriate to express your anger, because he said, I'm very angry, I very like this park, and what are things you can and can't do. The mom continues, and he was his happy, cheerful self after that. I was so impressed with how he expressed himself rather than having a fit or lashing out. I'm very impressed. I would have been impressed if this kid had been 20. And you did beautifully. Beautifully. So this next is just suggestion. It's not a detraction from what you just said. Or even a correction. You could have said, this is just another one, mostly for the benefit of the people who are listening, because you already did it great. Thomas, would you rather be angry, which you say in an angry voice, or would you rather be happy, which you say in a happy voice? Kids ain't stupid. They know the difference. And what you're kind of implying is, although you're not saying it, do you like it better when I'm angry or happy? See? They're pretty smart. Now, he'll think about it. And he could go either way with this, with the answer, just to test you. Then you play a game where you talk about what you liked, went to the park, or what you like. Going to the park, having a nice bed, having a nice stuffed giraffe, whatever. And you'll discover that gratitude dispels disappointment and anger. And then you could ask, which did you like better? Being happy and grateful, or being, and then in an angry voice, angry? Lots of different ways to teach children that happier works better. You did one, you did it beautifully. I suggested another one, just because the kids never tire of you doing it a different way. Here's somebody, new subject, somebody who writes and says, I agreed to drive 8 hours to the other side of Texas with an acquaintance to attend a seminar. That was bold. I won't drive for 8 hours with any but a really tiny number of people. And I think I'm related to all of them. Because that means for 8 hours, you're stuck. And if it's no fun, now you go past stuck into trapped. You continue. Never been on a long car ride with this particular person, and truthfully, I don't know him that well. But we had a similar interest in the subject of the seminar. He's not a bad guy, but since making the plans, I've spent more time with him, and his energy is draining to me. Just his whole way of being in the world, not a specific thing, but then she names a specific thing, several. She said he talks endlessly, often loudly, and has an opinion on everything. Well, that would be 3 specific things. I told him that I wanted to listen to books on tape for the car ride. I was hoping that would be a hint that I don't want to get into big conversations. Actually, that's kind of a hint that you don't want to have conversations at all. And it's kind of a clue that you might consider an alternate plan from being in a car with this guy for 8 hours each way. You continue. I'm tempted to cancel the trip. Somehow I feel like I'll fall into the role of taking care of his needs as he talks a lot. Well, you do what you want, but I'm sold. I'm just listening to your words now. You have given me enough evidence that you don't really want to do it. So I'm just reflecting back to you what you're saying and possibly not hearing. And then you say, any advice is welcome. I make plans all the time. And then I don't hesitate to change my mind when I think something is going to stress me. I may make an agreement to be on a phone call with somebody or a Skype call or go to a meeting or whatever. Why do we gather information if we're going to be so stupid as to proceed with our plan? This is true everywhere. Businesses make a plan. Then they gather more information, and guess what they do? Then they change the plan. The military makes a battle plan, and then the enemy moves to a completely different location. Well, they don't proceed with the plan because, well, they promised that they would do it. We gather information to make and change decisions. Now, yes, I understand the reasoning of people who say, my word is my bond. And see, if nothing changes, that makes sense. Somebody agrees to deliver something to your house, you agree to pay X price for it. Well, if nothing changes, they bring it to your house, then you do have a bond. You agreed to pay that, you pay that. But what if you discover on the way over or after they've gotten there that what they deliver you is broken or rotten or is otherwise not what they advertised? What, you're going to pay them because you agreed to? That would make you what they call stupid. We gather information to make and change decisions. And it really doesn't sound like you want to go. So what can you do now? I would just text him. Texting is easier. It sounds impersonal. People say, oh, that's just so impersonal. He broke up with me by text. And I'm going, well, what if he'd broken up with you by phone? Would you have said, thank you so much, and hung up the phone? No. You'd have yelled and screamed and cried and tried to get him to change his mind. So the only sensible way was for him to break up with you by text. So I would just text this guy and say, I'm not going to be able to make the trip we'd planned. Love you. Done. Don't explain or justify yourself. If he asks what happened, you just say, something came up that I didn't expect, which is true. You changed your mind. And you learn that he's loud and opinionated and talks without stopping. But no more than that. Because every time we give somebody a reason, they're going to argue with every single reason. So why prolong the argument? So then she emailed me later, second email. And she said, as soon as I sent the text, I knew it was the right thing to do. I would have just hated the 16 hours in the car. So thanks for bringing me to my senses. I helped a little, but you'd pretty much given me all the information and I was just relaying it back to you. This is from a mother who says, my son Harry is still very resistant to any real love teaching. He whines and complains when I teach him or give him consequences. Well, duh. I mean, he had a perfect gig with you before. If he whined and manipulated you enough, then you'd give him whatever he wanted. And now you have changed the rules, which means he doesn't always get what he wants. Well, why would he like that? And why would he want to hear the new rules spoken out loud, for heaven's sake, to remind him that he hates it? So, of course, kids resist real love in the beginning. Most of them do. You say, he says that he will never like you, meaning me personally, but he's okay with some other real love people. I think he's figured out that you have bigger guns than he does. You're a smart mother. Kids know who they can manipulate. That's why they ask questions or permission or favors of some parents and not of others. They can smell weakness, but they can't admit that. They have to say, oh, well, I don't like him and I never will. Because it makes them look self-righteous, which is fine with me. You say, I said, that's fine. You get to choose who you do and don't like, as long as you understand that I do like Greg because he helps me a lot. He helps me a lot in my own life, and he helps me with you. So here's the important point. I don't care either who he hates. But you mentioned that he whines about learning. And that's a problem, like really big problem. He doesn't get to whine or complain. Not ever. Really much like the example of the mother who taught her 2-year-old not to whine or complain. It's a poison, I'm not exaggerating, that will enable him to be a victim. Every day I talk to people who are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, whose parents did not have the guts to stop them when they whined. And now they have a pattern of victimhood that is so entrenched and powerful that getting out of it becomes pretty much impossible. So every time he whines, you have to talk to him about it. I mean, every time. You ask him, tell me what you're doing right now. This is important that you ask him the question. Don't you deliver the lesson. He's already heard the lesson from you 20 times. And the more you tell him, the more excuse he feels in getting annoyed at you for repeating yourself. No, you're changing all that. You're making him tell you that he's whining like a baby. In fact, you keep asking questions until he says it just like that, because it is whining. And he is whining like a baby. This 2-year-old's figured out how to not whine. Well, that's like a baby. And you do it every time. No joke, this matters, because young whiners grow up to be major league whiners every time, just like little dogs grow up to be big dogs. You say, he said to me, you should just, this is great, you should just know how to love me. What is wrong with you? Why do you need help from other people? Hysterical. So he's going to deflect all of this back on you and make this your fault. So he doesn't have to be responsible. Well, there are lots of ways to answer his question. I'm going to suggest one. You come up with your own. This would be you speaking to your son. You say, you, meaning your son, should just know how to ask a question and express your feelings without whining like a baby, too. So why do you need help from me? Turning the question directly back on him. And oh yes, he will get that you're making fun of him. Then you answer your own question, because nobody ever taught you before now, which is my fault. And nobody ever taught me how to be loving. So now I'm getting help. Aren't you thrilled? When you trap them like that, they won't admit that they're thrilled, but they will stop arguing with you. You say, and I could go on. You get how he's being. Yeah, I kind of do. So I've made it very clear that there's zero tolerance on whining. We only speak English in this house. Well, bless you. If he's angry or whining, everything stops, period. You say, so he was meant to bring his clothes for soccer to school on Monday. On our way out the door, I see his bag of clothes in the hallway sitting next to his school book bag. But he's on his iPhone looking at YouTube videos, and I ask him as we prepare to leave the house for the school drop-off, do you have everything you need for school today? That was actually very sweet of you to do. You did not have to do that. I would not have done that. But bless you for not nagging and saying a whole lot more. And you say, he was like, well, yeah, Mom, shh, I'm listening to this, and he motions to his phone, kind of like, bug off. And so I just left him alone. And we leave, and I notice that he only picks up his school bag and forgets his soccer bag. I'm thinking, excellent. This is a perfect lesson. You say, I literally had to bite my lip down and force myself out of the house so that I didn't pick up the bag or tell him to go back and get it. Bless your heart. Perfect. You've spent his whole life letting him make irresponsible choices, and then you pay the price by picking it up, by taking it to school, by whatever. Now you're letting him pay the price for his own irresponsible choices, which is the only way they learn. You say, so I drop him at school, he gets out of the car, and then I drive away. I'm loving this story so far. I'm just praying that you stay strong. We'll see. So not 3 minutes later, my phone rings. Mom, I need my bag for soccer today. And I say, oh, did you forget it? Okay, I would have said that. I love it. Miracle Mother. You say, he asked me to bring it to him at school. And I said, no. And just, by the way, enjoy your detention. Because it turns out that soccer is part of the gym class at school. And if you're not prepared, then they send you to detention after school. If you were here, honey, I would squeeze the breath out of you. Yay, Mom, letting him experience this. You say, he just cut me off on the phone because I was being inconvenient to him. Because so far you have babied him. Then at his first break period, he calls again. And then I get no less than 7 text messages begging me to bring the bag. Actually, begging some of them, demanding on some of the others. One of the texts even said, well, then Dad will bring it to me. I guess he'd forgotten that his dad is out of the country. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, whatever. What he's doing is manipulating, begging, demanding for you to stop holding him responsible, because once he starts being responsible, well, then the joke's up. Now he knows that you know that he can be. And up to this point, when has he ever had to be? You say, I said, well, you left it behind, so because you were on the phone and you weren't paying attention, it's your responsibility. And we've talked about that. So he served detention. And when he got back in the car at the end of the day, he was snotty. Now, this is the part you need to hear. Right then, when he gets in the car, you don't drive away, or if there are parents behind you, drive a block away, and you stop. You stop the car, turn the car off, and he talks until he admits that he was an irresponsible brat. And I would actually require he use that word. And that he blamed everybody else for his choices. My dear, you have to do this, or he's going to grow up to be like his father, who was and is a disaster. You really don't want to be the one who's partly responsible for teaching him that. Then you say, and then he said that I was so mean for not bringing the bag in, and then he had to wear somebody else's old clothes and stinky shoes that were old and too big. And my reaction to that is, well, gee, tough beans. Actually, my reaction is jubilation, because if he wears poorly fitting and stinky clothes enough, then he'll probably bring his own bag with, the clothes that you probably cleaned in a nice fresh bag. You say, I said, well, maybe you'll remember better next time. Perfect. And I will never drop off stuff that you have forgotten unless it was a genuine mistake, which doesn't include you were watching YouTube. He got the message. And all evening, he was cheery. Happy ending. Cue the angels singing again. Bless you. Hooray. Kids want consistency. They want gravity in their life. Now you need to do more about consistently stopping the whining and make him tell you what he's doing. Just telling you because I care about you and I care about your son. infinitely superior way to raise a child. Here's a lady who writes and says, today, my husband, Mark, just got in one of his rare, really productive moods where he starts to just do all kinds of things around the house, like cleaning up and organizing and stuff. And he said to me, I really hope that you will join me in getting things done. Crafty devil. But that's a very unproductive way to ask for help for at least two reasons. One, it's really general. I hope that you will, get behind me and join me. And two, it was a decision that the two of you didn't make together. He decided to go crazy organizing things and then expected you to just follow along. So, really unproductive way to ask. You say, and I felt pressured by that. Duh. And I told him that. And he said that he didn't know how else to say it, that he was just hoping. Adults, just like little children, are excellent at acting like they're innocent. I didn't know how else to say it. I was just hoping that you'd help me. It just sounds so innocent. If he wants help, he can ask for help doing a specific thing on a specific job, unless the two of you agreed to work together all day. General requests do not work. I just wish you would help me more. It's like a death sentence. Why? If you do help him, you'll never end up helping him in quite the way he wanted. You'll never get it right. If you do enough, he'll be barely satisfied. So after working all day, the best you'll get is he won't complain. If you don't help him, he'll be unhappy. So the best you get is that you didn't make a terrible mistake. You say, I said, I know, but I get scared that you'll get disappointed or annoyed at me afterward if I don't help you enough. Now, what's funny is that usually our roles are reversed. Usually I get all energetic cleaning up and ask him for help, but then he refuses to do it and resents it. So I even said, you know how you feel when I get all productive and cleaning up the house and then I ask you to help me and then you get annoyed? Well, you don't like it, and that's how I'm feeling right now. Not a really bad answer. Second email. She writes and says, by the way, I did tell my husband that it would be more helpful if he said, could you help me with X, and name a specific job, rather than I'm really hoping that you'll join me in being productive. And, he had no problem with that. He asked me a question or two, and then he said, okay, next time, that's what I'll do. So look what you just did. You solved the problem easily, solved the task, solved the potential dilemma, instead of having arguments, being right, and resenting each other. Kind of like I was suggesting a mother do with the 2-year-old. Would you rather be happy or not happy? You did well. A mother called me, and she was describing her 15-year-old daughter, new subject, who has let's call it multiple behavior problems. The mother, or the 15-year-old daughter, was addressing her mother with just gross disrespect. Up yours, I'll go wherever I want to. You need to be home by a certain hour. I'll do whatever I feel like it. Her grades, she didn't care anymore. She was pretty much running her own life. And she had completely detached from her mother and the world. So I asked her a few questions, and the mother, and I learned that the kid lives on the phone, like always. Goes to bed with the phone, gets up with the phone, is on the phone all morning, during breakfast, during meals, on phone instead of doing homework, and is angry all the time. People who get addicted to anything become difficult. This kid is pretty obviously addicted to her phone. And I said, first thing you got to do is take the phone. Anytime that she hasn't done her homework, anytime her grades are bad, anytime she speaks to you disrespectfully, you just hold out your hand. You don't deliver the same lecture every time. She knows the lecture. You can deliver it once and tell her that she's detaching from the world and it's hurting her. So because you're her mother, you're going to do what's best for her and help her to get over this addiction. Now, of course, she'll deny that it's an addiction, and you're going to discover whether it is the first time you take the phone, which she did. She took the phone, and there was anger and swearing and screaming, and she ran away from home and went to live with her father, the ex of the mother. The mother calls me in tears going, well, she's run away to her father's house. And I said, well, doesn't she hate living with her father? She said, well, yeah, but I said, do nothing. If she hates living with her father, within a few days, she'll be back home. 2 days later, she came back home. There's a reason she was living with the mother. The mother continued to do this. And what's the 15-year-old daughter like now? The mother wrote me the other day and said, she's a delightful child. When she is separated from her phone, she's happy, she's cheerful, she plays on the floor with the cat, she helps out in the kitchen, she talks to her mother civilly without being ordered to. Kids want parents. And if we don't create rules, they become their own parents. And although they think that's what they want, it's not what they want. So it's our responsibility, since we brought them into the world, to take the job that we took upon ourselves to be parents. And they're much happier that way. We can't do this, of course, until we feel loved ourselves. You can't love a child until you do. So what do you do about it? Well, read the parenting book. That's going to take you a little while. And in the meantime, you listen to the kind of things that we talk about here in the chats all the time. Then you find people who can love you. You trust them to love you. You remember that you're loved when you talk to your child or spouse or anybody else, because if you remember that, no matter what anybody does to you, they can't take that from you. So you feel relatively invincible. You find it, you trust it, you remember it, and then you practice sharing it with others. It's a pretty great way to live. We'll see you in a week.